Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time in attending the Rapido monthly update for November 2024. My name is Megan Weldon. I'm a product manager on the Rapido team, and I'm happy to be here with you today. Okay. Our agenda is as follows. It's a familiar format if you've attended these monthly updates in the past. First, we'll address a few topics of the Rapido community, then cover the upcoming Rapido monthly release. Today's release that we're covering will be the December release, and we'll just be covering a few of the highlights for that December release. Then there's some time for frequently asked questions. I've got quite a few to share with you today. And at the end of the frequently asked questions section, I'll pause for a moment to see what questions you've shared in the chat so that we can address those together either today or follow up via email as needed. Okay, first, our wonderful Rapido community. Here's a few highlights that might be of interest to all of you. If you've been following the listserv, you might have seen that the enhancement cycle process has concluded the voting rounds. So you may be familiar with this process being known as the NERS process. It's now known as the curve process. And from the Rapido and RapidILL community, we have a few developments that you can expect to see on the 2025 roadmap. One is about parsing more volume formats. So I think it's 5 new formats that we'll be working on for Rapido to better understand. Then there is the development that the community voted on related to closing periods and due dates and renewals. And the third item being the reject reasons as customizable. So thank you for everybody who participated in the enhancement cycle process. I know that it was a lot of work for our working group members, and the community put forward a lot of great ideas, and there was a lot of participation as far as the number of votes that we received. So thank you to all involved. Okay, this month we had a really great webinar with Chris Lee and Mike Richens, the topic being the CSU's journey to unifying 24 campus libraries with one resource sharing system. If you didn't get a chance to see that webinar and are looking for a link, please let me know so that we can connect you with that resource so you can hear the story that was presented. Another webinar that may be of interest to you is coming up on December 5th. This webinar is about the peer-to-peer connections that some Rapido libraries have been working on in their Rapido environments. So we have folks from Brandeis, Drew Parker, and Chris Lee from California State University System presenting on their experiences and the end-to-end of what it looks like to set up the peer-to-peer connections between Rapido libraries and Iliad libraries. I will share the registration link at the end of the session, and you may have already seen it come across the listservs as well. Okay, that moves us now into the development section of this update, and we will first talk about the development related to our theme of optimize. So this optimize theme is thinking about how you best want to work with your partners and the flexibility that you have in place in decisions that you are making at your library. So this highlight from the December release is the capacity to set the limit on the number of requests you receive per particular partner in a time period for your RapidILL requests. So as this rolls out, this will be something that you configure in your RapidILL web pages as opposed to within your Rapido environment. So that's just something to note. I have a screenshot on the next slide to visualize this as well, but from the website, if you're on your RapidILL settings, under My Profile, there's a copyright settings page. There'll be a new checkbox there, lending request limits checkbox, and you can define the max number of requests and the time interval. This configuration may be of interest to you if you're a library that's concerned about copyright from the lending perspective. Maybe you receive a lot of duplicate book chapters from a particular partner or from partners within a short period of time. Maybe this isn't of concern for you and it's not a configuration that you need to explore, but it's an option available for you at this time. If you are the only supplier for that request and your limit has been achieved and that partner tries to send another request to you, the request does get rejected from the Rapid ILL partner. So that's something to maybe be aware of from the borrowing perspective. If your requests are rejected or you're seeing an uptick in that, perhaps it is related to the number of requests going to a particular partner. Okay, so as a lender in your Rapid ILL web pages, this is what it looks like. Under the under copyright settings, there's a lending request limits checkbox. Maybe you don't want to receive more than 5 requests within a 72-hour window from a particular partner. That choice is what this library has made of their configurations here. So that's an option available to you now as you optimize the way that you work with Rapido. Okay, the next development for the December release is in our theme of connections. So we work and connect with our partners in a variety of ways. As this development builds upon past functionalities or past developments, I'm just going to reintroduce those so that we are all on the same page as we think about what this development is and does. So for our December release update, we first want to think about an item that was first released back in November 2023, and that was the functionality to set different lending price fields. So this is relevant to you perhaps if you're a library that is working with partners at cost. So not relevant necessarily for your pods as they're reciprocal today for both your Rapid ILL and your Rapido pods, but maybe you're a lender that works with particular partners at cost. So you have shipping cost rules in place, and maybe you have a shipping fee or a base fee or if request exceeds a certain number of pages fees. So that's an option for you in your environments. Related to this, in April, we saw the addition of the request cost fields with invoicing functionality coming into play. So here you can see that in your a screenshot of your request. You can see the different invoice fields, the number, shipping cost, base fee, etc. You can see if the invoice was printed or not. And of course, this all is dependent upon if you sent the invoice to your partner, which you can do per request, or you could have a job running that finds those invoices, finds the request needing an invoice sent and sends that invoice. Your partner then receives the invoice letter that you've triggered either via your job or via manually sending them that invoice. And so this is what the letter that they may receive would look like. Then to kind of complete the cycle, here comes the aspect of the December release, and that's as a lender being able to update if the invoice was paid or not. So you see a new field in that request cost view called invoice paid. Additionally, you have new set facets visible to you where you can see if the invoice, here we see if the invoice was printed, yes or no, meaning was the invoice sent, yes or no, and then if the invoice was paid, yes or no. So you have the different set facets visible to you in addition to this new checkbox so that you can update your requests accordingly and track that workflow or track that step in your workflow if you are invoicing your partners. So that's what's new with the December release regarding this holistic invoicing functionality. Okay, personalize. This next development is related to personalizing the way that you work in Rapido. And again, as it's building on a previous development, I'm going to reintroduce or remind us of the development that was released so that we can all understand what is coming with the December release. So in July, the functionality that was received was the search in Rialto market. So from a request, you would have the search in market action if your library is both a library using Rapido and Rialto, and if your staff have the appropriate user roles. From there, the search in Rialto action looks like this next screenshot where you have the marketplace open. In addition to having the visibility of the marketplace, you have the visibility of the resource sharing request details within that purple section on this screen, and you can make that selection to put that item in your cart. what's coming in the December release is building here on this next slide. So perhaps we have made that decision to put that item in our Rialto cart, and we would have the label on our request. So that's the kind of the screenshot on the right. On the left is what we have visible to us now with the December release, and that is the Rialto status as facets and available for us to work on in faceting our requests or in saving sets for our requests. So here you can see that the Rialto statuses that you already saw as labels on the requests are now in there as facets, and that's in Rialto cart, purchased in Rialto, or rejected by Rialto. So that those are there, and I've had libraries asking about them, so I'm excited to see them there for you. You can use them to make sets to help you track where in the life cycle or workflow that request is at. Perhaps your library makes decisions or takes different actions if your request was rejected by the Rialto, has a rejected by Rialto label. You can then have a set to help find those. Maybe you're tracking items in Rialto cart, maybe you're tracking purchase in Rialto, etc. You can have the different sets that support your workflow decisions and tracking that way. Okay. Those were the main highlights from the December release, and now I want to address a few frequently asked questions topics. In a recent release, we released functionality of the shared barcode, and I've received a lot of questions, so hoping to provide some clarity. The information that I'm sharing in this slide is also in the hands of our documentation team to be added to documentation under the borrowing workflows page. So you can expect to see that there soon as well. So essentially what was added is a parameter that allows the lending library to determine whether or not they're sending the barcode information to the borrowing partner. Setting the parameter to yes means that as a lender, you are allowing that barcode information to go through to your borrowing partner. Then when the borrowing partner is working on the request, they have the option to receive the item in their receiving workflow based on the barcode. So of course, as a borrowing library, you can have a set of items that you can go to and update individual requests to receive them. A lot of libraries receive items from this receiving screen found under fulfillment, resource sharing, then receiving items. So that's where this screen is coming from. And as you can see, you have the two different identifier types, barcode or external identifier. If you're receiving by the external identifier, you're likely receiving the item based on paperwork provided by the lender. So maybe the lender is using the full incoming slip letter or the resource sharing shipping slip letter or the full resource request slip letter, and on that letter they've customized it to add the external identifier as maybe a scannable barcode even. So maybe you're using that workflow and it works well for you, and you can continue to do that today. However, if you want to be receiving items based on the barcode of the actual item, that is an option with some limitations to consider. The barcode is only available for receipt if the Rapido library has not set the parameter to no, meaning they have chosen not to share that barcode information with a request update. As a lender, if it's set to yes, though, that information is coming through. Additionally, that barcode is only coming through from your Rapido partners. So if you have other partners, email partners, etc., RapidR partners, that barcode information is not going to be coming through for you to be able to update on that item. Another aspect of this kind of workflow or this conversation that I've received questions about is if you are doing the receive based on the barcode, staff are seeing it populate with a prefix of Rapido. The prefix of Rapido should stay. You don't need to edit what you're scanning in. I've heard concerns about, if I don't remove it, then it might cause issues, or I'm concerned that it would cause issues for the checkout or check-in process, and that's not the case. The Rapido prefix is just there so that Rapido understands that this barcode is coming from the Rapido request as opposed to it being a local barcode. So once it is received with the Rapido prefix in place, it's not going to think it's from a local item. And then your users or your library staff who maybe are performing the patron checkout or the patron return, they can do the check-in and check-out based on the item's barcode itself. They're not going to see the prefix. They don't need to worry about the prefix. As a person in the borrowing workflow, you can receive it and leave the prefix in place, and it won't affect things downstream for that workflow. So that is kind of a lot of information, but it's coming to the documentation, and I hope I've addressed the various questions that I've received around shared barcodes. If you still have questions, let's connect so that I can support you with that and then make sure that our documentation addresses outstanding questions as well. Okay, as we approach the end of year, I'm often asked about how do we turn off lending so that you are not receiving lending requests when your team is not staffed to handle those requests. So in Rapid ILL web pages, you can go in and under settings, do lending off hours, in which will determine that you will not be receiving lending requests for those book chapters, articles, etc., from your Rapid ILL partners. In Rapido, you can also disable lending under your configuration general libraries, add a library or edit library information. And in the resource sharing section, select temporarily inactive for lending, and that will prevent you from getting requests from your pod partners during that time that you are not staffed to be able to manage those requests. Additionally, beyond the lending side of the conversation, I've had conversations with and questions from libraries about what are other folks doing about borrowing requests during this time. So here are a few things that have come out from those conversations that may be points for you to consider. Some libraries, from the borrowing perspective, they don't make any changes to their configurations or end user experience or anything. So that's option one that I've heard about. Option two that I've heard about is some libraries like to put a mediation rule in place, and they call it their holiday mediation rule. So why they do this and their perspective in doing this is that if they're not supplying at this time because it's a holiday season and other libraries aren't supplying at this time, they're going to come back to the office to a bunch of rejected requests or requests that didn't get filled by their partners. And instead of working on requests at this stage in the game, they are going to mediate those requests ahead of time to stop all of the requests from going out to partners, whether that's physical and digital or just physical, etc. And they make a mediation rule that will stop the requests and give it a holiday label or whatnot. And then when they return to office and they anticipate that other libraries have returned to work at that time, they add their escape label so that the requests can be released from mediation and go through the remaining mediation rules or the remaining workflows, and the library disables the mediation rule at this time. So this is kind of a workflow option that libraries have brought up as a way that they handle not wanting to come back to a lot of expired requests or rejected requests as they see their overall network is not able to supply during this time. Another aspect that I've heard libraries engage with as they think about holiday closures and the borrowing experience is they use the patron note field to help set user expectations around the holiday delays. So your end users will still see the offers, still have their normal resource sharing experience because you haven't disabled borrowing in any way, but using the patron note field on the request forms so that when they get to the form, they have a little bit more information. Maybe that's shipping delays, staffing absences, whatnot, that would inform their expectation that maybe they aren't going to be getting it in the pod terms as they're seeing there. Other libraries choose to make just to make the configuration setting and choice of becoming temporarily inactive for borrowing. This does impact your end user's experience, so you may receive feedback from your end users that the system didn't work the way that they're familiar with it working. And that is just something to keep in mind if that is a decision pathway that you that aligns with your library's perspective and goals. So just wanted to present a few different options that I've heard about from the community as far as ways that they are engaging with holiday closures and the borrowing experience. am going to put my email up on the screen now so that if you have questions, you can jot down my email to be able to reach out. And then what I'm also going to do is grab a few links to drop into the chat. And after I've done that, I'll touch base with your content from the chat to see what questions you've put forward today. Okay, so in the chat from me, you'll now see a few different links. The first one being from the CSU's Journey webinar, the second one being for the upcoming webinar from colleagues at Brandeis and CSU for the Rapido and Iliad peer-to-peer connections. The third link being the monthly webinar registrations going into 2025. So I've scheduled the monthly webinars for the first half of the year, and you can get those on your calendar via that registration link. And then the last link that you'll see there is the monthly release notes. Because this is the December release, we have now have a full year of release notes to perhaps review, see what items you've want to be using at your library, and let's touch base if there are any of those releases that have come out that you still have questions about. Okay, and just give me a moment as I look to the chat and Q&A to see what items you might have brought forward today. Okay. Oh, and I'm sorry, I see somebody commented that they didn't have visuals throughout this session. I hope that that's really unfortunate. I hope that was a unique experience and not across the board. I anticipate that if it was a shared experience, they would have seen a few more acknowledgments of that. Okay, yes, somebody's saying that they did have visuals. So I apologize. I will have this recording available. So if you did not have a great audio or visual experience, the recording will be available for you. Okay. Seeing some feedback that there was visuals on their end. So I apologize for that experience for you. Okay. We'll give a moment for any other questions to come in. Okay. I'm not seeing any additional questions. At this time, if you have further questions, please feel free to email me. Additionally, if it's been a moment since we've gotten to discuss how things are going with your library and any Rapido topics that are important to you, let's connect and set up a meeting to touch base. I look forward to full 2025 and all of the upcoming functionality that you can see in 2025 as well. Please register for the monthly webinars in 2025 as these will continue with monthly releases in Rapido and lots of updates to share then. Okay, thank you everyone.